Greetings and salutations, Internet. My name is Kind Death, and today I want to talk to you about World of Warcraft 8.0, otherwise known as the Post-Legion expansion, which is yet to be named. We're less than 2 weeks away from BlizzCon 2017, and I kind of wanted to go over what my predictions for the game would be. This video is going to have possibly some spoilers. We're going to be talking a lot of hypotheticals, predictions, that sort of thing. So if you're into that kind of discussion, then join along. If you don't like spoilers, it's probably better to turn off the video now. I'm just going to dive right into it because there's a lot of points I want to hit, and I don't want this to be an overly long video where people just kind of tune out. Long story short, I think Cataclysm 2.0 is in order. I think we're looking at a third possible sundering of Azeroth. We know as much as Tyrande states that she's fearful of it in data mining. The time between Vanilla and Cataclysm was much shorter than between Cataclysm and now. I'm going to get a little bit further into the video. I'll kind of explain why in more detail of that. But I think the first half of Cataclysm 2.0 is going to be very Alliance versus Horde heavy. As we know, Titan Blood is very powerful, as Khadgar has stated. I see the Alliance probably led by Jaina Proudmoore, who has a seething detestment now for the Horde, and Sylvanas, who has a seething detestment for the Alliance, vying for said power. So I think the second half is us basically going to have to be redirecting our focus towards the old gods. I think the resurrection of Cthulhu is pretty much a foregone conclusion. Yogg-Saron is probably likely to, although I think Cthulhu's guaranteed. Yogg-Saron might be kind of more iffy because of his location. I think it's very likely that Shadow Priest weapon Xal'atath was the fifth old god that's referred to in the Warcraft Chronicles. I think we'll kind of see that coming forth. Obviously, it's been a long time since we've had new races in World of Warcraft. Last time we had a new race was Pandaren in Mists of Pandaria. Well, that's 3 expansions ago. I think it's almost guaranteed we're going to get new races. But I think the 2 new races, and I think the one race here is really going to infuriate a lot of people for me suggesting this being a likelihood, because it's one of those hot button topics. I think we're going to have Naga for the Horde, and I think we're going to have High Elves for the Alliance. I know that's particularly Blood Elf players are going to, riot with their pitchforks and their torches. But the fact of the matter is that Blood Elves comprise 1/5 of all characters played at level 110. The next closest race is like humans, and they're like almost 5 or 6% behind. The Blizzard writers can basically do what the Blizzard writers want to do. They could come up with whatever kind of backstory, razzmatazz they can. I mean, at this point we had Pandaren added to the game. Who predicted Mists of Pandaria and Pandaren seriously? Nobody. It was thought as basically an April Fool's joke for a long time. A lot of people suggested it. Most of those people were made fun of, and then they were later vindicated as The Last of Us collectively scratched our heads going, is this really happening? Are we being trolled? I think it's too soon for ethereals to be put into the game. I think that's likely for a next expansion. I think we need more lore based on Koresh and whatnot. I do think that there's a possibility, because High Elves might share a very similar silhouette to Blood Elves, that we could get 3 new races, especially since it's been so long since we've gotten new races. I can potentially see High Elves, Ogres, and Naga potentially as a neutral race. Obviously, if they're going back to an Alliance Horde conflict with ships and pirates and that kind of stuff, High Elves and Ogres make a lot of sense of herking a lot of people back to Warcraft 2. I think we're going to have a lot of new lands, like mostly islands, like Kultaras, Telebeam, Kazan, Zondalar, a lot of South Seas type islands. However, there's not enough real content there. I mean, they could make Kultaras the size of kind of the Broken Isles, but they really took some liberties with the lore to make the Broken Isles as large as they were, because they are not supposed to be anywhere near that size in the lore. They retcon the heck out of that. I think we're going to have true scaling in all zones, at least in the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor and the new zones that we're going to have in the expansion. What I mean by that is you'll basically be able to level all the way from 1 to max level in those zones, should you choose. I think forcing people through the old Burning Crusade zones is a grind, especially if you're new players or you're trying to re-level new tunes. Nobody wants to go back through those areas and level those. If you want to go achievement grind, that's great, but forcing players through some of that old content that's just really clunky. Even Wrath of the Lich King at this point is really clunky. It just doesn't feel good. Basically, anything that's older than Mist of Pandaria feels pretty archaic, and I don't see the devs continuing doing that. And a lot of other games are doing this. They've already implemented this in things like Time Walking and like the Headless Horseman and other holiday events. I almost guarantee that we're going to see this kind of thing happening. And again, that supports the Cataclysm 2.0 thing. Now, I also believe that we're going to have world quests across the world, as many people were pressed, were like, hey, if this works in Legion, can we see this in the old world? Can we see this in places that we used to go? And I said, the devs kind of said, well, this is kind of a beta test for us, so let's hold back on that thought. But if it works out, yeah, we'd love to do that. I think that's coming. World quests were wildly successful in Legion. They weren't nearly as diverse as the devs led us to believe. We thought that we'd really not see the same thing for like every 2 months. That's not exactly how it worked out. The idea was there, but world quests are still a great thing. They don't clutter up your quest log. They give people objectives to go through. They change. It becomes a lot less tedious. I like world quests. I think most players like world quests. It's also a way to kind of help solve world PvP. Have an event, like maybe if we don't go to the wetlands for a couple weeks, for example, for a world quest, and now we go there and they send the Alliance and Horde to control a point there. Or fight over a town or a tower. I think that makes a lot of sense as trying to re-engage people in World PvP, because let's be frank, World PvP is dead. I also think it's very likely that we're going to see a stat squish. I don't see a situation where we don't see a stat squish. Otherwise, people are going to be doing hundreds of millions of damage probably by the end of the expansion. We're going to be auto-attacking for over 1 million, and we're going to be critting for like 50 to 70 million with the way that the numbers work out. So I think I think the devs realized that the WoD stat squish was probably a bit too conservative. I don't think they thought that the numbers would probably catch up as quickly as they did for Legion. Otherwise, I think they would have squished a little harder. I think there's a little bit of problem with, there's too much of a gap in between item level too. Like we're jumping too many item levels between tier. Now that's my personal opinion, but I think we might see them a little bit more conservative approach with item level gaps in content in the near future. But I think we're probably going to see in Legion, we're probably likely to see Wrath of the Lich King type numbers. I'm talking about in the 10-20,000s for damage. Probably Burning Crusade numbers for anything that is Legion, Warlords of Draenor, where it's in the single-digit thousands, and probably older content than that, upper hundreds to 1,000. That makes a lot of sense. There's just a bunch of extra zeros and pointless clutter at this point. Item levels and stats on gear needs to be changed too. Like when I'm looking at something and I see so many thousand, strength, like trying to differentiate between like a 1,844 strength and 1,852 strength, it just doesn't feel good. It's not visually, it's visually just bad. I think that they're going to address that. I think they have systems in place to do that, and they've known how to kind of do that for a while. I think they just wanted to be conservative with Warlords of Draenor, which I can understand. I think what we're going to see is a revamp of how legendaries are addressed. I think mostly legendaries are going to be done via professions and bind on equip world drops. Now, that goes back to kind of the more vanilla Burning Crusade system of epics being dropped, bind on equip, which means that they will be more rare than they are right now. However, if you want them and if you have the gold, you can go get them. This kind of allows people to hunt and search for their own legendaries, and it removes a lot of the QQ that goes along with the whole legendary system. I don't think legendaries are going away. I think legendaries are actually a good addition to the game. I know kind of Diablo 3-ifies everything, but I think it's actually a good thing, especially if they're more mindful of the effects of said legendaries. I would like to see them more affecting builds and whatnot in the game than they currently do. Kind of give you an alternate route and play style. I think new Goblin and Worgen models are incoming. I do think the RNG is going to get even worse. Blizzard seems to love it, and I think the numbers they look at for that is the number of casual players that play like it. People that are regulars or are hardcore players don't like it, but that's not the majority of the people playing the game. So I think that RNG is here to stay, boys and girls, like it or not. Mythic Plus, I think, is going to become the new endgame design focus, displacing rating. Blizzard loves their esports. They've bought they built their own esports arena. They bought out Major League Gaming. The Mythic Dungeon Invitational was a huge success numbers-wise. So going from that, I'm going to move on to my bold predictions. Because if you think the high health thing was a bold prediction, just wait for what I have in store for you. First of all, the dreaded loot boxes. I don't want to say certain, and I don't want them, but I think they're happening in World of Warcraft, boys and girls. And I think to do it, to quell the uprising of upset World of Warcraft players, they go, I don't want that. As soon as I do that, I'm going to quit the game. There's no more of this. I'm going to put up with this crap. Well, they're going to appease those players by saying, guess what? You don't have to pay a subscription fee anymore. $15 a month? Don't have to pay it. You also don't have to pay, use all of your gold that you've acquired to buy tokens. So, win for you. However, those loot boxes will probably more than pay for themselves and the subscriptions. I think, as we well know, World of Warcraft used to be the big money gainer for Blizzard. It has been massively displaced by Hearthstone and Overwatch. And I'd even speculate that Heroes of the Storm is making more money right now than World of Warcraft, especially because of the overhead. Now, think of the number of players out there that would be willing to buy loot boxes in World of Warcraft when it comes to mounts, skins, battle pets, toys, other cosmetics. There's a lot of those players. Matter of fact, I would say a majority of the players would be willing to do that, especially if they weren't spending $15 a month and they could have free loot boxes thrown to them at events. That would not only... If without any subscription fee, people be more willing to play the game, so you get more people coming in to play. I think World of Warcraft's going free to play. The more and more I've thought about this, at first I thought this was kind of an extreme idea. One of my friends brought it up to me, and the more I kind of dwelled on it, kind of seeing what's happened with Shadow of War and Battlefront 2, which are egregious ways of implementing loot boxes. I just don't think there's any way of preventing loot box phenomena from infiltrating basically almost every AAA title out there. I think this is kind of the DLC / expansion future that video gaming's looking at. The more, especially when somebody brought up the sub races, I was like, oh no, loot boxes are definitely going to happen. Now, they might not happen at the beginning of the expansion. They might not come out till later in the expansion. I think it's going to happen sometime during the expansion, though. My next bold prediction is they're going to take class fantasy focus to the next level. And what I mean by that is they're going to return to more traditional roles, like rogues are the stun kings, mages are the crowd control kings, paladins are the kings of utility, that means that there's going to be a loss of all classes having their own self-heal. They're having their own root, their own slow, their own stun, their own silence, like... A lot of these homogenization choices were based around making Arena viable, and because of Blizzard's focus on esports. So for the PvE players out there, and the fact that Mythic Dungeon Invitational has been so successful, I think Blizzard's going to start moving away from Arena, its resources out of that. I still think every class will have an interrupt, however, but as we know, interrupts don't necessarily lock people out of schools. They just stop your cast nowadays. But yeah, I think moving towards more of rated battlegrounds in the PvP scene, it'll be good overall for the game. I think arenas have hurt the game more than they've helped it, truth be told. And here's my next bold prediction, and one that many people probably will rejoice over. Looking for raid? Gone. I think they are going to completely get rid of looking for raid in the next expansion. There's so many different difficulty levels now, and for the most part, normal raiding, it's so easy to find a group, and it's so easy to use their group finding tool in the game now that looking for raid has almost outlived its usefulness in a sense for casual players. Even casual players can find groups, where you used to have to use external websites to kind of find your own normal dungeon group. Or normal raid group. That's not so much the case anymore. In a lot of cases, normal raids, in my experience, have gone much smoother and easier than looking for raid, which means that if normal raid is easier to form, or almost as easy to form as looking for raid, the queue times are significantly less. There's not the level of toxicity. That means that I think the devs are going to look at looking for raid and say, there's not really a point for us doing this anymore. And I think that's, I think looking for raid's gone. So rejoice for that. So that might be the best part of Cataclysm 2.0 is Cataclysm brought it, and then Cataclysm 2.0 took it away. Thank God. It was the worst part of the first Cataclysm, in my opinion. So that's it for my predictions. The next video will be High Elves and why I think they are likely to be one of the next playable races in World of Warcraft. If you like this video and you want to see more of it, please follow, like, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and on Twitch. Have a good day.